Hello and welcome to Real Obscure. My name is Kevin H. Shaw, and tonight we're going to check out a grocery store gross out, where a crazed killer indulges in cut price carnage as they slash more than just the prices. From 1989, it's the supermarket stalk and slay, Intruder. Intruder actually has a very interesting pedigree. It was directed by Scott Spiegel, who also co-wrote the script with its producer Lawrence Bender. If you're familiar with the works of Sam Raimi or Quentin Tarantino, then these may be names that you will recognise. And speaking of Sam Raimi, both he and his brother Ted, and their friend the mighty Bruce Campbell, all make appearances in this movie, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Scott Spiegel was a longtime friend of Sam Raimi, attending the same high school as the director, and he collaborated with him on a number of projects. But outside of their friendship, he also forged his own career as a writer, producer, and director, writing such movies as Thou Shalt Not Kill Except, The Rookie, and Tonight's Offering. Plus directing Hostel Part 3, he was the executive producer on the original and this sequel, From Dusk Till Dawn 2, and the cinematic adaptation of Peter O'Donnell's Modesty Blaze in 2004. Lawrence Bender is probably best known for his work with Quentin Tarantino, whom Spiegel introduced to Bender, producing most of his early movies including Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, in which he plays long-haired yuppie scum, From Dusk Till Dawn and its sequels, and Jackie Brown. He also produced Good Will Hunting, Anna and the King, and Hacksaw Ridge. As I say, we'll come back to the cast, which, like most slasher movies requiring a lot of victims, is quite extensive, so we'll get to them as they're introduced. So, what's it all about? The movie begins with Jennifer and Linda, two checkout operators working at an independent grocery store, the Walnut Lake Market, which is named after the real market in Michigan where writer Spiegel worked and drew inspiration from. Jennifer is played by Elizabeth Cox. Now known by her married name of Liz Kern, Intruder was probably her biggest role, but she did have some smaller roles in such cult movies as The Wraith and Night of the Creeps, and an uncredited appearance in 16 Candles. Linda is played by Renee Estevez, a member of the Estevez Sheen family. She's probably best known to horror fans for playing Molly in Sleepaway Camp 2, but she also appeared in Heathers and Single White Female. Plus, she had a recurring role in The West Wing, playing an aide to her real-life father, Martin Sheen. Following a comedic interaction with the elderly Mr. Abernathy, played by Emil Sitka, frequent straight man to the Three Stooges, which is something I'm sure was a delight to Sam Raimi, Jennifer is shocked when her ex-boyfriend Craig shows up and, well, let's just say their relationship didn't end well. Craig is played by David Burns. Much like Elizabeth Cox, he's probably best known for his role in this movie, but he did appear in 2 entries in the Witchcraft series, playing the role of Will Spanner, best name ever. If you're not familiar with the Witchcraft series, it began as a Rosemary's Baby homage before transforming into a series of softcore adult features. At the time of recording, there are 17 movies in this franchise, and if you thought watching the Lord of the Rings extended editions was a commitment, it would take you, according to Wikipedia, close to 24 hours to watch the entire Witchcraft series. Time well spent, I'm sure you would agree. Anyway, back to Intruder. As this is going on, the store's owners, Bill and Danny, are in the office going over some paperwork, and when Linda presses her alert button, they and the rest of the staff come to Jennifer's rescue, fighting with Craig until he makes good his escape and hides somewhere in the store. Bill is played by Dan Hicks, A longtime friend of Raimi's, he appeared in The Evil Dead 2, Maniac Cop, Darkman, and Oz the Great and Powerful, before sadly passing away in 2020. Eugene Robert Glazer takes the role of Danny, the store's co-owner. Glazer is probably best known for his recurring role as Control in the TV show La Femme Nikita, and a variety of guest roles in shows including TJ Hooker, Dallas, and 24. He also appeared in Hollywood Shuffle, The Substitute, and the What If John McClane Was Played by Anna Nicole Smith masterpiece, Skyscraper. Anyway, the staff go off in search of Craig and to alert the remaining crew of his presence, at which point we're introduced to the rest of the cast in a nice montage sequence that showcases their roles and characters. Dave is played by Billy Marty, an actor and producer, probably like a lot of the cast, best known for this movie. Dave is particularly protective of Jennifer, and we learn he has a crush on her, which is later reciprocated. Bub is played by Burr Steers. Starting his career as an actor, he is also a successful writer and director, with his writing resume including Igby Goes Down and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, and he also directed numerous TV shows and the zombie comedy Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Here his character Bub is something of a stoner and a former friend of Craig's. He fills in some of Craig's background, explaining that he began dealing and using following the death of his father, which ended their friendship. It's a scene that's quite organically introduced and adds a little more depth to the characters. Craig Stark plays Tim, one of the store clerks predominantly working in the coolers, which when I worked in a grocery store was always my favourite place as it meant minimal customer interactions. Stark has an extensive career in acting, appearing in Chopper Chicks in Zombie Town, 2001 Maniacs, Django Unchained, The Hateful Eight, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Sam Raimi plays Randy, the store's butcher. If you're watching this, then I'm sure you're familiar with his work, but if not, I'll just list a few select movies he's been involved with here to bring you up to speed. The Evil Dead, The Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, Darkman, 30 Days of Night, The Quick and the Dead, The Hoodsucker Proxy, Time Cop, The Grudge, Drag Me to Hell, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, Oz the Great and Powerful, The Evil Dead Remix, Boy Kills World, Xena Warrior Princess, and Ash vs. Evil Dead. Ted Raimi, the brother of the aforementioned Sam, plays Produce Joe, the store's fresh produce guy. Predominantly known for his acting, Ted Raimi has appeared in movies including The Evil Dead 2, Shocker, Darkman, Wishmaster, and the original Spider-Man movies, plus he's also known for his recurring roles of Joxer in Xena Warrior Princess and Lieutenant Junior Grade O'Neill in Sequest DSV. Anyway, back to the plot. When Craig once more confronts Jennifer, the staff are able to eject him from the store, but he continues stalking around the building, even going so far as to call Jennifer repeatedly from the payphone outside. Following the confrontation, Bill and Danny assemble the staff, who are working an overnight shift, to inform them that they're selling the store to the city and, as a result, they will all be losing their jobs. However, that's not the worst of what will happen on this particular night, as it soon becomes clear that the staff are being targeted by a disgruntled individual, with each picked off one by one in a series of gruesome murders. Which we'll discuss now as we head into the spoiler zone. First to die is Linda. She's outside loading groceries into her car. Apparently she doesn't have to pull an overnight shift at the store, and she's killed with a large butchering knife in a scene that's based around a really nice edit, where we cut from the knife being plunged towards her to a watermelon being sliced in two. It's an effective scene, but be warned, things escalate from here, and it's not all about clever cuts. At least, not that sort of cut. After a brief discussion with Danny, who we find out is the majority shareholder in the store and that Bill does not agree with the sale of the business, Bill heads outside where he finds Craig spying on Jennifer. The two fight and Craig strikes Bill in the head with a hammer. Back inside, as Danny continues analysing the books in the store's office, he is attacked by the killer from behind. His eye is plunged into Chekhov's bill spike, and his twitching fingers land upon his desk calculator. Even as he lies bleeding out, it seems all Danny cares about is profits. The remainder of the staff are dispatched in similarly gruesome ways. Producer Joe is stabbed through the back of the head in, again, a fantastic edit. Randy is hung on a meat hook. Bub gets his head, or rather half of his head, crushed in a box baler. And most grisly of all, Dave's head is cut through using the bandsaw used to split chickens. It's a deeply, deeply gory sequence, mainly due to the way that it's such a messily positioned cut. It's not a straight decapitation, and I won't go into details, but let's just say flying teeth, and leave it at that. Seriously, I'm pretty much immune to gore effects, but much like the thumb slicing scene in The Thing, the thought of this, it's just so real and brutal that it really will have you wincing, so be warned. Jennifer finds the remains of her co-workers and is chased by the killer. Trapping him behind a freezer door, she manages to stab him in the hand with a meat hook as he attempts to claw his way out, and then she flees. When a customer pulls up at the locked doors, she tries to alert them to her presence, but they leave before she can do so. And then Craig grabs her from behind and she sticks him in the neck with the meat hook. He falls to the ground, presumably dead. Bill staggers into the store and, explaining that Craig attacked him and left him for dead, he comforts Jennifer before heading to the phone to call the police. But when Jennifer sees blood on her hands from embracing Bill, and then that his hand is bleeding, she realises he has been the killer all along. He chases her. In a great display of agility from Hicks, he leaps from register to register, and, pinning her, explains that the store has always been his life, and that it was Danny who, as majority share owner, forced him to agree to the sale. Initially, he had planned only to kill Danny, but things got out of control because he's just crazy about this store. He tells her he has to kill her and that Craig will take all of the blame. But as he's talking, she's able to break free, thanks to a bottle to the head, and escapes into the store. As she's fleeing, Craig, who did not die, is hiding in one aisle and grabs her. He explains that he saw Bill kill Linda outside and broke into the store to warn her. Bill's plan is indeed to set up Craig, who is on probation after accidentally killing someone in a bar fight, and he tells Jennifer to leave the store through the bathroom window he used to get inside. Bill attacks them and Craig fights him off long enough to let Jennifer escape. She unlocks her car but finds the body of Linda inside, a knife stuck inside her. Bill grabs her ankles from beneath the car and drags her under it. However, as he pulls her clear, she plunges the knife, which she grabbed from Linda's body, into his heart, and he falls to the ground. She clambers into a phone booth and calls the police, but as she does so, Bill leaps up and attacks her, pushing the booth over to the ground. As he is about to kill her, Craig appears and begins hacking at Bill with a meat cleaver. The two stand over the prone body of Bill as the police arrive, and, seeing the pair covered in blood, arrest them, as Bill, who did not die, tells the officers that the two of them have murdered everybody in the store and they were trying to finish him off. Ignoring their pleas, the cops arrest the pair and, as Jennifer screams, the movie ends. Now, this movie, like a lot of 80s slashers, does a great bait and switch when it comes to the killer. It's something more akin to the first Friday the 13th than the sequels, where we're set up to believe one character is responsible for the murders, only to find it's actually somebody completely different. you're expected to believe it's Craig who was responsible, with the subtitles even saying things like Craig breathes heavily when it's a POV shot from Bill's perspective. It's really well done. But the script does a good job planting a few seeds that you may not pick up on until later. Bill, for example, began at the store as a butcher, so he's used to handling blades. As a member of staff, he knows how to operate the machinery, such as the bandsaw and baler. He references being a former volunteer firefighter, which accounts for his physical fitness. And most of all, he immediately sides with the staff following the announcement of the store's sale. The store is his life and he does not want to sell it. And then there's the fact that Bill is set up as a genial kind of guy. He takes his breaks with the crew, tells funny stories, although his true story about Bill Parker, the sandwich and the head is actually from the movie Raising Arizona, so presumably he's lying about it, even if he does later recreate it. But he is still very much one of them. As a result, Bill comes off as the last person you'd expect to be the killer, but is also simultaneously set up perfectly, so when the reveal comes, it's not just some random background stranger who we met in the first act buying dog food, but then jumps in through the window at the movie's climax. 90% of Jolly, I'm looking at you. But it's just so frustrating that the distributors of this movie went ahead and commissioned artwork for the cover that spoils this carefully laid groundwork. I don't mean there's a clue to throw you off Craig as the killer, or some other tiny detail that you could use to deduce the identity of the stalker. No, they have slap bang right there, clear as daylight, an image of Bill leering away and leaning over a bunch of body parts whilst holding a meat cleaver. Dude. And whilst his crazy about this store rationale seems a bit of an excessive catch-all explanation, even if it does give us such a great line, his actions actually do make sense. With Danny gone, there's nobody to pressure him into signing over his almost half of the business, and so he could keep the store open. So then silencing the rest of the staff, who do know about the potential sale, does make sense, especially when he has violent offender Craig to pin the crimes on. I'd never really thought of it that way until just now, and actually it's a pretty well thought out plot. Oh, and they also demonstrate him doing a convincing impression of Danny, which later comes into play in a way I won't spoil, even here. Anyway, as the movie is a low-budget indie production, it gave the cast and crew room to experiment and improvise. One character's death, for example, was actually suggested by Ted Raimi, and they went with it. There's also a lot of experimentation in the way the movie is filmed, with some strange POV shots, such as from within a shopping cart, from below a floor being swept, and even inside a rotary phone dial. And yes, young people, you can add that to the ever-growing list of things you don't understand in this movie, such as price guns, grocery stores that aren't Walmart, and pleated pants. Although, if I'm being honest, back in the day I didn't understand that one either. Now, some of these shots work, but others, not so much. I applaud them for trying to do something different and speak their own visual language, as it were, but it's a little intrusive at times and some just don't work. You'll see this in the early fight sequence, which features a lot of character POVs of punchers coming toward the viewer. It's almost like watching a 3D movie at times. Now, I don't know if this is intended to spoof the usual POV shots we see in slashers, or are they just doing something to give it its own visual identity? I'm really not sure, and I'll leave that up to you to decide. There are also a few performances that just aren't so great. Some of this is down to the way reaction shots are edited into the scene, such as Jennifer's shock when Mr. Abernathy's grocery bag splits, and others are just from inexperience. Yeah, there are a few now look at me, I'm acting scenes, particularly when they're physical or non-verbal moments that just don't work too well, and they look more like big stage play performances rather than cinematic expression. Although, to be fair, there are also some very good performances. I won't go into too many details as I'm avoiding spoilers here, but you'll know them when you see them. And it's also worth noting that although Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi get top billing on the movie poster, Campbell's role is little more than a cameo, and Raimi is just one of the crew. And minor spoilers, but he isn't the final girl. If you're a kid who grew up in the 80s, or you're just a nostalgia head, then there's so much to enjoy here. The ambience of the Walnut Lake market with its pleaty-panted, big-haired women, rotary phones, handwritten signs and genuine contemporary products, some forgotten, some well remembered, just adds such a fantastic vibe to the movie. It's not only a fantastic trip back in time, but it's also utilised extremely well, with the store aisles, office, storage space and back of store areas you don't normally see as a customer all giving it a much larger feel than it should have. This is a single location with minimal outdoor shots and a fairly enclosed space, yet it manages to be visually interesting and engaging while simultaneously working as a space in which characters can be trapped and stalked. And there's also a great sense of humour to the movie, with a scene in which Tim and Linda discuss Craig's unstable character and how he had to be subdued one time with a blender, a Hamilton Beach one to be precise, like that detail matters. And when one character is sliced in two, their body is placed in a barrel marked half off. It's very much the kind of dark humour you find in Raimi's other works, and I was particularly reminded of the A Farewell to Arms gag in Evil Dead 2. And as I mentioned in the spoiler zone, there are some genuinely graphic and shocking moments of gore, which ramp up as the movie continues. I won't spoil them here, suffice to say you may need a strong stomach to make it through this movie, and well, you may find yourself spending a little less time at the meat counter next time you visit your local store. Now, on a personal note, or at least one relating to Real Obscure, this marks the 30th movie I've covered here, and when I was thinking about that landmark, I had a few ideas for movies I'd like to discuss, but nothing really seemed quite right until I remembered Intruder. It's exactly the kind of movie I started this podcast to cover. It's quirky, it's genuinely entertaining, and it has a lot of behind the scenes and production stuff that makes it perfect to discuss. But most of all, it's one of those movies you'll watch and tell your friends about, and will be met with completely blank looks. Considering the cast and crew, it still surprises me that this remains a relatively unseen flick. The point of Real Obscure was always for me to share my love of odd movies or films that I felt were underrated or even unknown, and to bring some attention to them. And that's something I hope I've been able to do over these last few months, and will continue to do so as the show grows. And no, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere, despite what I may have sounded like when I started talking there. I do want to take a moment though just to thank everybody that supports Real Obscure, from those of you who've never seen any of my videos until now, to my most loyal of subscribers who watch each one, to everybody that comments on what I'm doing, to those of you who support the show financially with your thanks donations. You'll find that option under the video, but if you don't see it, look under the little 3 dots menu and it should be there. And everybody that comments with suggestions or just engages in general banter with me over on Blue Sky. I really do appreciate all of you. Anyway, thank you for everything you do and for helping Real Obscure last to 30 episodes. And on that note, thanks for listening, and I'll see you all on the next 30 episodes of Real Obscure. This episode of Real Obscure was written, produced and put on half-price sale by me, Kevin H. Shaw. If you enjoyed this episode, then please stick around for the end titles trivia, where I'll be covering a few things I couldn't include in the main review. Please be sure to like and subscribe and turn notifications on so you never miss another episode. Sharing the episode here or through your social media channels is a great way to help the show grow. You can also support Real Obscure financially using the thanks option to make a one-off donation. Your comments are always welcomed below, or you can email hellorealobscure@gmail.com. You can visit the show's website at realobscurepod.com, and I'm on Blue Sky using the handle @realobscurepod. Intruder is copyright 1989. All content here is used for educational and commentary purposes under Section 107 of the Copyright Act, fair use, and remains the property of the respective copyright holders, presented here for the purposes of critique, commentary, and discussion. No copyright infringement is intended, so please don't sue me or do that thing to me with the bandsaw. Ugh.